What's going on, guys? Welcome to Tech Savvy Buyer. So what we're going to talk about today is if you should still be considering to pick up a Nintendo Switch in 2019. So let's see if it's worth it or not coming up. So welcome back, guys. Thank you again for joining me on this adventure. We're going to take a look at if it makes sense to actually buy this. And for those of you guys who don't want to stick around for the entire video, I'm just going to give you the short answer, and it's simply a yes. And we'll walk through all the different features of why it still makes sense. But first, I just want to start off by giving the Nintendo a bit of credit here for what they've done with this handheld console. This came out in March 2017, which means we're almost exactly 2 years old at this point. And within 2 years, it has already outsold the PS Vita in handheld sales, or in console sales in general, which has been around since 2012. That speaks mounds and mounds upon the success that this device has captured for Nintendo. Now, let's talk about what are some of the things that really make this unique and why you should absolutely pick this up, and what may be some reasons you don't want to pick it up. I still think this is a very solid console. So first off, I'd like to say that I think that the Nintendo Switch is arguably the best portable console that you can buy today. Whether you compare it to a PS Vita, whether you compare it to the GXD S192K, which is somewhat of a handheld console, or you compare it to a Nintendo 3DS XL or other Nintendo products, this is the best device you can get. And it's not just because of what's under the hood on it, but it also has a lot to do with the game library, the different features that are available on this, and most recently, the fact that you can actually hack this device and do a ton more stuff with it that you couldn't do before. And in some cases, one can argue that it should have been able to have some of those features like playing Netflix, playing YouTube, and things like that when the Switch first came out. So let's go off with one. Like I mentioned, the portability aspect of this is fantastic. Out of the box, you get, multiplayer that's local, that you can use both of your controllers just like that. And you don't need to actually stick with just one. Now, one thing that I don't really like about this is that these are pretty tiny. And with someone with big hands like myself, it can become a little bit cumbersome playing on this for long periods of time. So not something I would recommend people with big hands for. But this is great for kids or people with generally smaller hands. That being said, the other thing I'd like to point out on the Switch is that it's got a massive growing list of games now. One of the things that plagued the Switch when it first launched was the lack of games. There was pretty much only Zelda, Breath of the Wild, you had Bomberman, you had a few other games that came out as launch titles, and they weren't enough to keep you occupied with this device for a long time. Now, I personally bought this when it launched, and I honestly would admit that it just sat collecting dust for months upon months upon months. And it wasn't until some more games started coming out and the fact that the device has now been hacked. So when I say that the device has been hacked, what are some of the things that this actually opens up for you? So for starters, you can start running homebrew on it. You can start loading different types of apps. You can put emulators on there to play Super Nintendo games, play PSP games, PS1 games, Sega games, pretty much any kind of games you can think of, except for Sega Saturn and Dreamcast, because those have a 3D API that's not available yet for the system. You can also play game backups if that's something you want to do. You can take your original games, you can load them onto your computer, back them up so you don't have to carry around your cartridges, and just load them onto the memory card, and you can play just like that. Again, like I mentioned, the fact that the first-party games and the third-party games were not large in terms of library size when the system first launched, now the story's changed drastically. There have been a ton of first-party and third-party games that have already come out for the Switch that make this solid for $300. There's absolutely no reason you should think that this is overpriced for this device, even though one could argue that the technology inside this is a little bit outdated, maybe, or possibly not outdated, but it's not worth the price tag of $300. But you know how Nintendo is. So other things to consider is if you're waiting for a sale to happen, don't wait. There's not going to be a sale on this device anytime soon. We've been looking at it for the past 2 years, and I've yet to see this device drop any cost, and Nintendo's pretty notorious for holding the price on its devices, and that's largely due to the fact that what you experience on their consoles is not something you can experience on, let's say, an Xbox or a PlayStation for that matter. You can't play Mario or Zelda or any of their IPs on any other console. And that's why people play Nintendo mostly. It's mostly for those specific games such as Pokemon, such as, Zelda, such as Mario. Those are the games that really bring out the franchise's power. essentially. The Switch is probably still arguably one of the best devices to play local multiplayer on. So if you have multiple people coming over your house, or you're doing a party or something like that, and you guys want to play some Mario or some Mario Party or Super Smash, this is the only console you can actually do it on, and I have to admit, it's really, really fun to do this. So playing games like Super Mario Party with your friends is an experience that you're not really going to get if you're playing something online with someone at their own place. And that's one thing that Nintendo has kind of held on to, making gamers be able to share a device in a local vicinity and not have to actually go online to play everything. Xbox and PS4 have wonderful online systems, but you can't really play two-player split screen and stuff like that as much as you can with the Switch on those consoles. And that's why I think that this is really unique. You know, Nintendo's really positioned itself to be different. So now let's talk about some of the other rumors that are coming out. A lot of people are suspecting that there's going to be another Switch coming out this year. It's probably going to be smaller, lighter, slimmer, stuff like that, or might have a little bit of a boost in it. And I would just say that if you're waiting to purchase this because you want to see what comes out, my frank advice to you is don't wait. There's more than likely not going to be a very significant change in the system. They might do some minor changes, but I doubt they're going to change the screen to, let's say, from 720p to 1080p, or change the processor, or change the RAM. They might do a very, very small modification, but it would not impact your user experience using the original Switch compared to a new one if it theoretically does come out. Now, there have been sources that leak saying that it is going to happen, but we aren't 100% sure for yet, as Nintendo has their lips pretty tight on this. So all in all, for $300, you still get a very solid console that has a much better game library than it did when the console first launched. Games like Super Smash, Super Mario Odyssey, and even Super Mario Deluxe have really given a new breath of life into this device, considering the fact that it was plagued by the lack of games in the start. In addition to that, the hacking scene has really opened up a lot of different possibilities and avenues of stuff that you can actually do with this console. So the support from third-party developers have definitely given this system a lot more value than it did with the Wii U back in the day. Everyone knows that the Wii U didn't really get a lot of games, but only pretty much Nintendo games. Now, the hacking scene that I've mentioned over and over again, you guys need to really check this out. It isn't super hard to hack the system, and it's actually free to do as well. You can load custom firmware on there, you can do a whole bunch of different things with it, and you can actually play backups like I mentioned. Now, some of the other cool things that you can do with it is you can actually stream your gaming PC over to your Switch if you have a hacked version. Now, it isn't the most user-friendly way to do it, and it probably is a little bit buggy right now. I know that there's some delays with the audio, and it only supports certain versions of custom firmwares that you're going to be using on it when you hack it, but it's good to see that developers are actually starting to make progress in making this console more and more valuable by adding different things to it. So upon my first impression with this system, I've had this since March 2017. I would absolutely still recommend anyone to go and pick up this system. It's definitely worth the $300 price tag. All the things that I shared with you guys just pretty much tell you why this system is really worth it. The only thing that I would knock on the Nintendo Switch is its battery life and the 720p screen that we got. I wish that they kept the screen to be 1080 just like you have when docked, but if they need to keep the cost down by making sure that you can actually play the games on the go and have a better battery life, a 1080p screen would have made, you know, a big difference in battery life and price, obviously. But let me know what you guys think. We are in 2019, guys, and 2 years later, the system, like I mentioned, sold well. Do you still think it's worth picking one up? Do you have one already? If you do, let me know what your favorite game is in the comment section below. I'll let you guys know what mine is, and for honestly, my favorite game on this device right now is Super Smash Bros. I think it's fantastic. It's the best Smash Bros. That I've ever played. And if you guys haven't played this yet, you're missing out. Trust me, this game is so much fun. I've converted a lot of people who did not believe in Smash type games that this game is actually worth playing, but it is super fun. So that pretty much concludes this video, guys. If you enjoyed this content, let me know in the comments below and drop a thumbs up. And if you guys are new to the channel, maybe subscribe. But until then, let's talk more about Switch in the comments below, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Peace out.